One of the most loved and respected voices in college football loves Byrum Brown.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Mike G of the War Report hanging out with little War Report Wednesday. We are so back. How much should Auburn run Byrum Brown this season versus what he's done previously, specifically last year at USF? Reasonable expectations, are they too high? Are they too low? Is somewhere in the middle actually logical? But Mike, I want to start with this, and you hinted at this last time we talked, but national folks are starting to love Byrum Brown or profess like, hey, watch out for this guy in this similar system. Kirk Herbstreit went on Crane & Co., our friend Jake Crane's show with On 3. And Mike, you're starting to see this. They asked him about like the top 10 quarterbacks, and like, that's fine if you don't want to put him in the top 10. I personally would have him over some of these quarterbacks that you're consistently seeing in the top 10. But it's like the people that kind of keep going down the list and do look at Byrum Brown, it's like, yeah, there's a lot to like here.
Yeah, there is a lot to like here. I want to point you back to some comments that offensive coordinator Joel Gordon made about Byrum Brown in our recent press conference.
Yes.
I got a chance to ask him about, Byrum and some of the things that he does well. And he just said, look, man, he said he's easily the best running QB I've ever seen. That's what he said.
Love it.
He stressed that they still have to keep him healthy. That, they're going to find a way to utilize his legs, but also, utilize all the other things that he does at a high level. So if you look around the SEC, there's a lot of movement at quarterback this year. Right. Of the top 4 passers from 2025, only 1 returns.
Assuming Aguilar and Chambliss don't get eligibility.
Are out. Yep, correct.
Yeah.
And it looks like I'm not high on Chambliss, returning right now.
He big for Auburn if he didn't.
Yeah, right. And Aguilar, same thing. A big on him returning, right? So that leaves Marcel Reed. Right. And when you look at the experience that Byrum Brown is bringing in, which Alex Golesh continuously points to experience being the key for them in year one, you got to like where Auburn is at. I think Byrum Brown at Auburn might be the best fit at quarterback in 2026.
Yeah, so let's hear what Kirk Herbstreit said. Once again, the context, they were going through the top quarterbacks, and then he went out of his way to talk about Byrum Brown. Here's what he said.
And then Byrum Brown, if you're going to throw a wild card, with Auburn kind of taking off, with a new coach and a new offense, I think people, by the time we get to middle of September into early October, I think I could easily see his name being a guy that a lot of people are like, wow, have you seen Brown, this kid at Auburn? I think he could be one of those guys because he's got some experience, but also I think because of the offensive philosophy, and they're going to take advantage of his skill set.
Yeah, the experience and the offensive philosophy. I don't remember if I said this on Locked On Auburn, if it was on Village Vice, or if I was a guest somewhere, but I talked about it's a little ironic almost, because I think all these South Florida guys who came over with Golesh, they're going to be more familiar with what they're doing than the guys that were retained, that were on the roster for Auburn in previous years. And like, you talk about returners, and like, okay, you mentioned Marcel Reed being kind of on that list, obviously Arch Manning, Gunnar Stockton. I don't think it's totally out of the realm of logic to treat Byrum Brown as if he's a returner. Not in the SEC, obviously, but it is another year in the same system, which, clearly that's something that Kirk Herbstreit is noticing.
Yeah, I don't think that could be understated or undervalued here. He's stepping into a system where he's clear on what the expectation is and how they do things. It's going to allow Alex Golesh to hit the ground running. They can start with higher level concepts when it comes to their quarterback, and he's going to help bring other guys along. They have a bunch of guys who, and he talked about this in the last press conference that we covered, that, those guys, those culture keepers that have come over from USF are helping the other guys to buy into their way of doing things now. Look, Auburn had the talent last year, but did they have the process? Did they have, the way of doing things that produced the right results? The answer is emphatically no, they did not. So if you believe that Alex Golesh is a premier offensive mind in college football, how can you not like him taking his quarterback who passed for 3,000 yards and ran for 1,000 yards with him last year with him at Auburn? How can you not look at that and say, hey, just like Kirk Herbstreit said, a few games into the season, don't be shocked that people are starting to say, ooh, this Brown kid at Auburn is nice.
Yeah, and I do think he's going to have a prime opportunity to kind of set the stage when they take on Baylor and Atlanta. I think that's going to certainly be a team that he's going to be able to rush all over. I mean, we saw Jackson Arnold do it. I think Byrum Brown's going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I think Baylor is kind of not in as good of a spot as they were last year. There are differing opinions on DJ Lagway. I don't think DJ Lagway is inherently bad. I think he was in a bad system, and I think he was battling some injury. But regardless, I don't think he's a great fit with what they were doing with Sawyer Robertson. I don't think he's a guy you want airing it out. And then we took the running back from him. So I am curious to see what national takeaways are from that, or if it's just two unranked teams. That's an interesting matchup in a neutral site. I'm using neutral site in air quotes, even though it's technically an Auburn home game. So just to Herbstreit's point, when could be that moment when people look and say, hey, whoa, you see this Byrum Brown guy? Because after Baylor's Southern Miss, is it at home against Florida?
It is Florida. It's Florida.
What a moment that could be. I mean, we've talked about it a ton here. I'm sure you guys have as well, Mike G, with the War Rapport. Whether they ask for this or not, Golesh and Summerall are going to be tied together because of all the stuff that happens with this coaching carousel. And the ties to Florida. I mean, there's a lot of interesting kind of elements in this. And the fact that both of them open conference play against each other, their first SEC head coaching action is against each other. I mean, what an awesome opportunity for both of these guys. And, hopefully we all agree that we think it should go well for Alex Golesh and Byrum Brown and all of these guys. So that could be the moment. I agree with you.
Yeah. Look, first of all, got to beat Baylor. Zach, I hate Baylor.
You hate Baylor?
I hate Baylor. I hate
Why?
Baylor. I mean, it's a game that Auburn cannot lose to a team that is clearly inferior from a talent standpoint. I just like Baylor. So
I'm with you. Okay.
The hell with them. But moving forward, so you win that game, and then you got Southern Miss, and then you open your SEC schedule versus the guy who reportedly Auburn wanted to hire before you. And I cannot believe that the competitor in Alex Golesh doesn't want to whoop Summerall's butt.
Yep.
Come on, man. That's made for TV stuff. And you have your quarterback, right? While he's going to be figuring some stuff out. I don't know, man. To me, Auburn could be in a really good position headed into Vandy, which will be the fourth game of September. It'll be a fourth game overall, but a second SEC game. I'm with you. I think the moment is Florida. If you can get a win versus Florida at home, people will start to take notice because you're 3-0 now. Now you're 3-0 to start your schedule, and you beat a non-conference P4 opponent, potentially. And then you got Vandy. I mean, Auburn 4-0 in September might be necessary with how October stacks up, dude. Tennessee, LSU, Georgia,
Ole Miss.
Yeah, come on, dude. I mean, Ofer in October is not completely out of the question with that schedule. So I think you got to get as many as you can in September. Right now, I don't think Auburn will lose them all, but it's just something you can't take completely off the table with the quality of opponents that they face in October.
So to pivot back to Byrum Brown and some of the comments Kirk Herbstreit said about Byrum Brown that we just heard, what should reasonable expectations be? Let's jump into that in just a moment. Right here on Locked on Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Mike G, when you're hiring for a business, a position, you want the most qualified guy, and you really don't want it to take too long.
Nope.
And Indeed can help you with that. Because instead of just hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, skills, certifications, location, if that's important. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you about Indeed, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Listeners of this show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you your job get the premium status that it deserves. That's at Indeed.com/podcast. That is Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. I mean, we're talking about Mike G's favorite team, the Baylor Bears. They're a 7.5-point underdog, according to our friends at FanDuel, which
should be more.
It's a pretty big line already. But I agree with you. I think Auburn should handle Baylor. I don't know if I think they should do it with the hatred that you have towards Baylor, but I do think they will take it to Baylor. If you want to get in on the action, you certainly can. And obviously the winter games are on, and the best place to follow the winter games is through FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. If you haven't already, check out our Everydayer Club. You can go to lockedonauburn.supercast.com to get more info about ad-free feeds as well as Discord access, or you can head over to lockedonucf.supercast.com. Support our guy, Mike G.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, do that, please, if you haven't already, or at least consider it. Reasonable expectations for Byrum Brown. Like, surely I'm not in the camp where I'm expecting him to throw for 3,000 and rush for 1,000 yards again in the SEC. I'm also not in the camp of, okay, like, he's going to not be able to translate. So as far as like what reasonable expectations should be for Byrum Brown, I think you could ask, 10 people this question and you might get 10 different answers, Mike G.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you just said. I'm going to get cooked for this in the comments. I think that 3,000 yards passing at least should be a reasonable expectation for Byrum Brown in the SEC with this coach.
Okay.
I do. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, and people will point to, when was the last time we had a 3,000-yard passer? It does not matter. Byrum Brown has never been here. Alex Golesh has never been here. My expectation is what these guys have done. I don't expect them to do less here than they've done at other stops. I expect them to do the same at minimum. He ran for 1,000 and he passed for 3,000. Now I expect him to run the ball less potentially here, but so I'll take the 1,000 yards rushing off because I don't think it's necessary for him to have a good season. I think he's going to run out as much necessity as he did at USF, but I do expect him to be a 3,000-yard passer. And quite frankly, in today's college football, that should not be a grandiose expectation. It should have been the standard. I mean, the coaches that we've hired have missed at quarterback. They've mismanaged play calling, and the quarterbacks have suffered from it.
Mm-hmm.
That should be over. So yes, I do expect Byrum Brown. I mean, you brought him in here. You brought him in here knowing that you were going to lose some guys, and that and you brought him in for a reason. So go pass for 3,000 yards. I'm not taking that expectation off this quarterback or this coaching staff. Revive this passing game.
If Byrum Brown throws for 3,000 yards, I mean, I'm trying to think like what I feel comfortable saying that like translates into wins. And I mean, it'd be the best season we've had in a while.
Yeah, well, that's not saying a lot. You've had losing seasons for like last 5 years. So the best season you've had in a while would be 7 wins, right? And so, I mean, look, I just
throw a 3,000-yard passer in the SEC with, what we assume. I mean, we all have different questions about the defense, but I just have faith that DJ Durkin's going to figure out the defense. I mean, that sounds better than 7-5 to me, though, right?
It does. It sounds a lot better than 7-5. But you have to forget like, you have to remember how many games Auburn has left on the table. For as poor as the record has been, how many times has Auburn been in the fourth quarter, Zach, in the last 3 years with a chance to win the football game?
Oh, man. I mean, almost every game they've played.
Yeah, come on, man. It's been a lot, right? So if you just start to win more of those than you lose, you're there at 8 wins.
I want to do this real quick. So I do think, and I'm a victim of this, when we have a discussion about Auburn quarterbacks and 3,000-yard seasons, like, it seems so foreign. It seems so impossible to see that. But just for context, these were the quarterbacks in the SEC that threw for 3,000 yards. Now, some of these guys played in an extra game.
Last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of them played in a championship game, and then some of them played in bowl games / playoff games. Like Trinidad Chambliss, he played in more games, so he had 3,900 yards. But Ty Simpson, 3,500 yards. I guess he played in 2 extra games.
Yeah.
Joey Aguilar would have only played in 1 extra game. He had 3,500. Same system. It's a very similar system, right? This is
right.
He's from the Heupel tree. Golesh is. Diego Pavia would have played in 1 extra game because of the bowl game. He threw for 3,500. Marcel Reed played in 1 extra game because of the playoff game. He threw for 3,100. And the thing about him is how inaccurate he is, and he can't pass. Arch Manning passed for 3,100. Gunnar Stockton played in a few extra. He passed for 2,800. Mateer had 1 arm for several games. It felt like passed for 2,800. So I don't think it's. I don't know. I think the perception of that from an Auburn point of view, and once again, I am 100% a part of that. Like, I don't know. Can Byrum Brown have a better passing attack than what Marcel Reed had last year? Like, possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, there's a path to it. I'm not ready to say that'll happen.
Yeah.
There is a path to it.
Marcel Reed was in the low 60s as far as completion percentage was concerned, but he had nearly 400 pass attempts. So, like, where are they going to have Byrum Brown? He passed for 300. He had 340 pass attempts last year at USF. And I mean, God, man, I remember Peyton's first year. I think he had like barely 220 like pass attempts. It was anemic, the amount that we actually passed. So if you're going to give him the volume, I think he can get there, as long as those, he can be average, 8 yards or more per attempt. What it boils down to is this has to be the best year that Byrum Brown has had in college football. Right. This is his last year. You've returned to play for your coach in a system that you understand better than anybody. So this needs to be his best year by far here at Auburn, with the facilities, with the focus, with the talent around him. You get a guy you're familiar with in Keyshawn Singleton. You get some other guys that I expect playmakers from the previous roster to emerge, right? I like that Bryce Kane stuck around. Could he be a guy that comes out of the pack this spring as someone who was a top 150 overall guy, one of those freeze 4 guys? Right. Got a lot of praise in camp, here. And I wonder how much Cody Burns and Alex Golesh see some of the guys that left over and say, "Ooh, man, I know we brought in our USF guys, but here's some guys with a level of talent that Bryce has not had an opportunity to play with, and they could help boost his game." So, this is the big leagues, right? And I expect big league numbers. I'm with you here. We've had a few quarterbacks who haven't hit that 3,000 yard mark, but have bordered on it. But they've been on much better teams where it just wasn't necessary for them to throw the ball here. But the college football has evolved. And in today's college football, I think, man, like, if you can't get at least up around it, we say 3,000 yards, but I'll be clear, man. Like, if he throws for like 2,750, I'm not going to be mad at that, right? Still having a pretty good year.
Especially when we have a productive rushing attack. It's like, 27 might be all that was needed. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the mark is up around there.
Yep. Right. Right. How much should we rush Byrum Brown? That's next after this quick message from Mazda.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Number 1 ranked UConn dominated Tennessee 96-66, turning a halftime tie into a historic win and avenging last season's loss by delivering the largest margin in the rivalry's history. AZ Fudd had 27 points and Sarah Strong added 26 as the Huskies remain perfect on the season, reminding everyone why they are the reigning national champions. In the Big Ten, number 2 UCLA rolled past number 8 Iowa 88-65, powered by 22 points from Angela Dukelich and a huge advantage in the paint, staking their claim as a national threat. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, final few minutes of today's edition of Locked on Auburn. Mike G of the War Report hanging out with us for a few more minutes here. How much should Auburn rush Byrum Brown this season? As you mentioned, offensive coordinator Joel Gordon's comments at the presser last week, Mike G, one of the best rushing quarterbacks he's seen. But Byrum ran it 175 times. They had 175 carries last year. If you put that in SEC terms, that's the same amount of carries that Jeremiah Cobb had last year. Just pretty crazy to think about.
Yes, wow.
Yeah, Kejuan Lacey had 306. Ahmad Hardy had 256. Deshaun Bishop at Tennessee had 220. Or excuse me, Jaden Baugh of Florida had 220. Deshaun Bishop of Tennessee had 182. And then Cobb had the 5th amount of touches for 175, which did not feel like that last year, if I'm being 100% real with you. So
woefully underutilized, yes.
Still, yeah, even with that. So to me, I don't see any way that number stays that high. The Diego Pavia had the most rush attempts by an SEC quarterback last year with 167. And I don't think they're going to do that with Byrum. Mike?
We ran Peyton Thorne like 130 times, and that felt like a lot.
Yeah.
So I would expect him to be in that range because one thing Gordon stressed was you'd be stupid not to utilize his running ability. You just have to, because he's too good at it, and he's going to help create mismatches. And here is a defense's nightmare. Quarterbacks like Byrum Brown make you play 11 on 11, and when you have real athletes at the skill positions and we're one-on-one, enough times we're going to win. Period. Right? If you don't have 2 guys in on the tackle, my guy's juking your guys. He's going 80 yards. He's getting to the end zone. He's dancing with the cheerleaders, and then he's going to get a Powerade break. I can't, like, Auburn has that's the type of guy Keyshawn Singleton is. It's the type of guy Bryce Cain is. If you get these guys in one-on-one matchups, and if you have to account for Byrum Brown on every single play with his arms and his legs, it's going to open up opportunities for the guys on the outside, man, and for the running backs. Yep. So, one of the things that's been so impressive about Auburn running backs has been the yards per carry. Jarquez, again, still woefully underutilized.
Right.
No way. I think he had like 185 carries. Give me a break, dude. That dude was averaging 6.4 yards per carry. We didn't even give it to him 200 times.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. So, Byrum Brown is going to poach some of those carries from the running backs, but how much should you run them? You run them as much as you need to, but hopefully you don't need to run them as much, because now you've got a good line around him. You've got good running backs around him that can carry some of that load. And then when he takes off, it's like, he got us again.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't know what's coming. Is it Cobb? Right? Is it Tay Meadows? Is it, what I mean? Is it Bryson Washington? Who's coming at you?
Omar Mapson.
Right. Yeah. Who's coming at you in that run game? Right. And then as soon as you start to overcommit, Byrum Brown over the top. That's how,
which is the goal. And I also think I like that you said, like, what is that amount? It's whatever's needed, because I do think this coaching staff, and I'm basing this off of what we've seen at USF and even what he did at Tennessee as a play caller, they're going to do what's working. They don't care if it looks good or not. I'm sure they prefer it to look good.
Facts.
But if you can get an ugly 6 yards a carry, you just do it over and over and over again. Hugh Freeze showed that he was not willing to do that. He was not willing to do what worked, even if he had to do it over and over and over again. He showed that he was not willing to do that. Alex Golesh doesn't care. Alex Golesh wants to win. And I think that's going to be something that's so simple and so obvious that like we just didn't have that over the last 3 years, and I think we will have that moving forward.
Yeah, you know, it warms my heart to think that we fired our coach and we still beat Baylor by like multiple scores. And so I think that Alex Golesh is going to come in and he's going to give them another taste of that, but Byrum Brown style. But Byrum Brown style, because I'm telling you, if Jackson Arnold could do it, like, I mean, Byrum Brown is 3 times the runner that Jackson Arnold is. You know, and Jackson Arnold is an extremely good runner of the football. But I think Byrum Brown is that good with his legs. I think he picks, you know, his spots, you know, better than almost anybody in college. Yeah, come on, man. Like this should be one of those things where you open up your season and it's the Byrum Brown show, and that puts all of college football on notice. You don't take it seriously. They're going to beat you, right? They said repeatedly they're going to practice the fourth quarter. And Auburn, you know, we opened this segment talking about how many times they lost games in the fourth quarter, but they were there in the fourth quarter, and that's what I think people need to focus on. So if Auburn makes the big jump this year, it's going to look like they made this massive leap, but the truth is they've been knocking on the door each of these losing seasons, right? You know, all this time. They gave Alabama all they wanted in the Iron Bowl this year. You know, I mean, Georgia, they've given Georgia all they wanted, you know, a couple of these last few years where it was just like, oh, if they could have just made one more play, if they just had their guy, if they just had the system, if they didn't have the things that held this team back, they'd be, you know, they wouldn't be a losing season. They'd be firmly in a bowl game at 8 or 9 wins or knocking on the door of that college football playoff. And I think that, you know, with Byrum Brown, you know, I think I said this on your last show. And so I'll finish saying this, Zach. Yeah, Byrum Brown is Alex Golesh's most important recruit because he is going to springboard what you're trying to do here on the Plains. And you need to show the world that you know what you're doing with quarterbacks. Auburn is no longer where top-level quarterbacks go to die.
That's right. That's right. What we did. Yeah, and you're going to need to make that sales pitch to quarterbacks probably after this year in the portal one more time before your younger guys are older. So, Mike G, how can people check out everything you've got?
Follow us on social media at The War Report. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gittens, on Instagram at Mike Gittens _. We are The War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok.
Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked on Auburn.